In our headlines on this Tuesday, June 23rd, here in South Korea, the U.S. is briefly suspending its sanctions on Iranian oil and says Iran will reopen its doors to UN nuclear inspectors. But Iran says no nuclear inspections have been agreed upon. Meanwhile, here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung calls for extensions in fuel price caps and fuel tax cuts amid conflicting narratives over peace efforts between the U.S. and Iran. Also, Samsung's latest high-bandwidth memory chips are believed to have become the first in the industry to surpass $1 billion in sales just 4 months after their launch. The Trump administration is suspending its sanctions on Iranian oil and says Iran has agreed to reopen its doors to UN nuclear inspectors. Iran, for its part, has denied the latter statement. Our Chung Hae-rim has the latest.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance says the latest round of talks with Iran laid the foundation for a possible final agreement, speaking to reporters in Switzerland on Monday.
But look, the fundamental thing we got is, number one, we set up the mechanism to ensure not only the Straits of Hormuz are open, but will stay open. Number two, we actually set up the right mechanism to ensure the regional ceasefire to manage the inevitable conflicts that will come up. We have the Iranians allowing weapons inspectors, nuclear inspectors into their country for the first time in a long time.
Vance said that Tehran has officially agreed to readmit International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, inspectors into the country. However, Tehran pushed back on those claims. Iran Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai said Tehran's cooperation with the IAEA would continue only under the existing framework. On the economic side of the agreement, the U.S. Treasury has issued a temporary 60-day waiver allowing Iran to sell and deliver oil without sanctions. U.S. President Donald Trump also said any Iranian assets unfrozen under the deal should be used to buy food and other agricultural products from the United States.
If Iran doesn't live up to their agreement, or if they're not behaving, I will do what I have to do.
But the details of those arrangements remain unclear, with technical teams expected to continue negotiations in Switzerland this week. Chung Hae-rim, Arirang News.
Here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung has called on his cabinet members to keep their guards up amid conflicting narratives by the U.S. and Iran as they seek to hammer out a tangible peace framework. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yu-jin reports.
With the United States and Iran yet to reach a final agreement to end the war, President Lee Jae-myung has once again urged his cabinet to stay on high alert.
끝까지 긴장의 끈을 놓지 말고 비상체제를 유지하고 민생 경제 회복에 박차를 가해 주시기 바랍니다.
Chairing a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, he proposed extending the government's fuel price caps and fuel tax cuts, citing high oil prices and inflationary pressure. Korea introduced price ceilings on petroleum products in March for the first time in 3 decades. Fuel tax cuts remain in place through July, with the tax cut set at 15% for gasoline and 25% for diesel.
반도체나 이런 데 초과 세수들이 좀 예상이 되고, 그러면은 유류세를 좀 낮춰도 재정 부담은 그렇게 크지는 않고, 그러면 좀 더 과감하게 석유 최고 가격제는 더 유지하고 좀 최고 가격도 좀 낮춰가야 될 거 아니에요?
Refiners are currently prohibited from selling gasoline above 1,934 won per liter, roughly $1.26, and diesel above 1,923 won, or $1.25. Looking beyond the immediate crisis, Lee said the war in the Middle East has exposed structural vulnerabilities in Korea's economy.
에너지와 원자재 공급망의 전략적인 다변화, 그리고 재생에너지 중심의 에너지 믹스, 탈플라스틱 순환 경제로의 이행을 서둘러야겠습니다.
The Foreign Ministry says it will strengthen supply chain cooperation with resource-rich regions outside the Middle East, such as Latin America and Central Asia. Meanwhile, the Finance, Industry, and Climate Ministries are reviewing measures to accelerate investment in solar power, wind energy, batteries, and electric vehicles. The president called on officials to work with greater precision, speed, and initiative to turn these goals into reality. He reiterated that the way public officials carry out their duties directly affects the lives of the people. 송유진, Arirang News.
In other news now, sales of Samsung's latest high-bandwidth memory chips reportedly soared past $1 billion just 4 months after their launch earlier this year. Our EG uncovers these prospects.
Semiconductor industry insiders say Samsung Electronics' 6th-generation high-bandwidth memory chip, also known as the HBM4, has become the first in the industry to exceed $1 billion in sales. If measured as of the end of June, sales are expected to exceed $1.2 billion. The achievement comes about 4 months after Samsung Electronics became the first company in the world to begin mass production of HBM4 chips. The HBM4 offers approximately 2.7 times higher data transmission capability compared to the previous generation, the HBM3E, driven by increased bandwidth. It also has a data processing speed of 11.7 gigabytes per second, about 1.2 times faster than the previous generation, helping to alleviate data bottlenecks that become more severe as AI models grow in size. Along with higher performance, it also improved power efficiency by around 40% compared to the previous generation.
NVIDIA has been the biggest user of HBM chips so far. With Samsung Electronics introducing an improved product, the company has now been able to supply its HBM chips to NVIDIA, which is directly contributing to its sales growth.
Experts say Samsung Electronics' strong HBM4 sales are largely driven by expanding investment in AI infrastructure. According to a Bloomberg intelligence report, the HBM chip market is expected to continue expanding to $130 billion by 2033, driven by the rapid growth of AI computing as workloads continue to scale.
HBM is a key component used in AI accelerator systems. As the AI industry continues to expand, demand for HBM and the size of the market are expected to grow accordingly.
Industry insiders predict that Samsung Electronics' HBM4 sales are expected to exceed $10 billion this year. If this is the case, this would mark an unprecedented level of first-year revenue for a new memory product. Lee Ju-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the local bourse lost tremendous ground on this Tuesday amid rampant profit-taking by foreign and institutional investors. The benchmark KOSPI closed at 8,203.8, down 9.9% from the previous session. A sell-side sidecar was triggered in the morning, followed by a circuit breaker after the index sank over 8% about an hour before the closing bell. The secondary KOSDAQ also witnessed a sell-side sidecar before ending down trade at 7.9%. The Culture Ministry has announced the launch of a public-private intellectual property fund to boost the country's video game industry. The fund, worth 120 billion Korean won, or some $78 million that is, will support game developers from the early stages to their growth into global IPs. Under the current agreement, the ministry will allocate around $39 million, while video game developer Nexon will set aside roughly $38 million, and investment firm Kona Venture Partners will earmark $780,000. The fund will focus on games with high potential for global expansion, including narrative-driven IPs. North Korea has reaffirmed its commitment to its nuclear arsenal and has ramped up its tough talk against South Korea. Our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung reports.
North Korea has once again reaffirmed its commitment to expanding its nuclear arsenal. According to the Korean Central News Agency on Tuesday, the ruling Workers' Party of Korea convened the second plenary meeting of the Central Committee for 3 days on June 20th to review the progress of decisions made at the 9th Party Congress in February. Presided over by leader Kim Jong-un, the meeting emphasized the regime's commitment to expanding and strengthening its nuclear forces and fully exercise its self-given status as a nuclear-armed state. Kim further ordered an increase in powerful defense assets without pause, with a goal of dominating the world, and to proceed with the construction of a 10,000-ton strategic guided missile cruiser. On foreign affairs policy, the North again labeled the South as its most hostile state and criticized this month's South Korea-U.S. Nuclear Consultative Group meeting, claiming the allies are expanding their military capabilities, including through Seoul's pursuit of nuclear-powered submarines. Regarding the plenary meeting, a unification ministry official noted that an unusually large share was devoted to national defense and foreign affairs. An expert agrees, adding that while the message towards South Korea remains in line with the two-state policy, its hostility has intensified. He attributed this to the war in the Middle East.
Unlike everywhere else, North Korea feels an exceptionally high level of security threat. So the need to justify strengthening its military capabilities by pointing to external threats is growing.
Meanwhile, there was a major leadership reshuffle, with Cho Young-won elected secretary of the party's Central Committee while removing Kim Jae-ryong. The same expert explained this reshuffle is to root out corruption.
It appears that the party felt the need to strengthen its control over the military by raising early awareness of the level of corruption within the armed forces.
The meeting also highlighted coal as a strategic sector, calling for a nationwide overhaul of mining communities for broader economic development plans. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
And British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has disclosed his decision to step down from office, opening the door for the UK's seventh leader in a decade. Lee Seung-jae has more.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced Monday that he will step down, triggering a leadership contest that could make Britain's next Prime Minister its seventh in the past decade.
Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
Starmer said he would remain in office until a successor is chosen, with a new leader expected to be in place before Parliament returns in September. Nominations for the leadership race will open on July 9th. The resignation comes less than 2 years after Starmer led his party to a landslide election victory, when he promised stability after years of political turmoil. In his announcement, Starmer acknowledged growing pressure from within his own party and said it had become clear that many members wanted new leadership. Attention is now turning to potential successors. Former Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham formally took his seat in the House of Commons on Monday after being sworn in as the Member of Parliament for Makerfield. Burnham confirmed he intends to run for the Labour Party leadership and position himself as a candidate to become Britain's next Prime Minister. The political shakeup also drew reaction from abroad. U.S. President Donald Trump said Starmer had hurt himself very badly through his policies on energy and immigration. Speaking at the White House on Monday, Trump criticized the British government's approach to North Sea oil development, arguing that restrictions on domestic production weakened the country's energy position.
I was critical only from the set because I think he's a lovely man, but I said you're really messing up energy. You have windmills all over the place. In the meantime, you have the North Sea oil, and they won't let anybody drill. And he's really hurt himself very, very badly.
Trump also pointed to immigration and crime as major political challenges that he said had damaged Starmer's standing with voters. Despite the criticism, Trump described Starmer as a friend and praised him personally, while maintaining that policy decisions ultimately led to his downfall. Starmer's resignation follows months of mounting political pressure, with energy policy, economic concerns, and immigration emerging as key issues in the debate over his leadership and the future direction of the British government. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back on the local front, Starbucks stores across South Korea closed doors at 3 o'clock back on Monday afternoon for a mandatory lecture on Korean history. Our Kim Do-yeon tells us why.
3 p.m. is usually a busy period for Starbucks Korea, but on Monday, customers were asked to leave and the doors were locked. The company shut down all 2,160 locations nationwide for mandatory history training. This is one of the busiest Starbucks locations in Seoul at Gwanghwamun Square. Customers are now finding seats outside while some latecomers are turning back. This unprecedented move follows a massive boycott over a Tumblr promotion called Tank Day, which pushed down daily average card transactions by 33%. The promotion was launched on May 18th, the anniversary of the 1980 Gwangju democratization movement when a military crackdown killed hundreds of civilians. The company faced heavy criticism for the promotion, which also had phrasing reminiscent of police brutality at the time. Backlash included accusations of historical insensitivity. In response, Starbucks Korea fired its CEO, accepted unconditional gift card refunds, and ordered the closure of stores nationwide for staff to take part in company-wide training. That included video lectures on modern Korean history and social sensitivity led by history and sociology professors. The closure also means the company is forfeiting millions of dollars worth of daily revenue. But is it enough?
While the incident was unfortunate, how the company handles it is their choice. The consumer reaction is also a matter of personal freedom.
Many people around me feel closing early is just for show. My decision to keep drinking their coffee depends on the company's direction moving forward.
Despite owning no shares in the Korean chain, global Starbucks headquarters issued an apology, and major foreign outlets closely reported on the fallout, showing the extent of international attention on the incident. Experts say the training is a necessary step for structural change.
Educating employees on the May 18th movement ensures they understand the historical context, which is crucial for preventing similar issues in future marketing campaigns.
Management, including Shinsegae Group chairman Jung Yong-jin, will also take the history lesson. The company said it'll address flaws in its internal review process with a social sensitivity checklist and a verification system for all future marketing. The group will also create a fund to preserve historical sites and expand student history programs. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, South Korea is seeking to strengthen its engagement with the Global South through development diplomacy based on its own grassroots experience. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young files this report.
A new diplomatic network has launched in Seoul as Korea looks to turn its development model into a stronger bridge with the Global South. Diplomats, academics and development practitioners gathered at Yonsei University in Seoul for the inaugural meeting of the Semi-Diplomacy Group, or SDG.
Through this platform that we launched today, we can have continuous, permanent engagement through this diplomatic platform, both offline and online.
The initiative builds on Korea's Semi movement, launched in the 1970s to modernize rural communities and improve living standards outside Korea's fast-growing cities. Based on the spirit of diligence, self-help and cooperation, the movement is now widely cited as part of the grassroots foundation behind the country's rapid economic rise. More than 50 model villages have since been established across 11 nations. Officials and community leaders from more than 100 countries have also visited Korea to study the approach.
And I believe for Tanzania as well, Semi movement can be adopted in our own villages, but our own communities as we are coming together. We have a 2050 vision of development. I think cooperation, diligence, and self-help are things that will help us. And
around 40% of the population of Honduras is rural. Semi-Rundong, it's a component that can drive change in our country. So people-driven and community-centered approach that Semi-Rundong develops through the capacity building in communities is one of the aspects that can be strengthened.
The initiative comes as Seoul broadens engagement with emerging economies across Africa, Asia and Latin America. Park says the model is not just about rural development, but about human foundations needed for countries to adapt and grow in a changing economy. He says those foundations include education, mindset change, leadership and civic values.
So Semi-Rundong has all these ingredients. So when villagers and leaders and also specialists, they learn and adapt Semaul. They can benefit in these 4 areas, and these are what is necessary in the age of AI.
Last month, President Lee Jae-myung visited the Korea Semaul-Undong Center, marking the first such visit by a progressive president. He called for a significant expansion of overseas programs as part of Korea's development cooperation efforts. The new diplomacy group aims to elevate this development approach onto the agenda of the 2028 G20 summit to be held here in Korea. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And now, as we've been reporting since last Friday, this coming July, the World Heritage Committee gathers in the Korean port city of Busan to go over the new nominations for the UNESCO Heritage List. That being said, our culture correspondent Park Geun-woo recently sat down with the head of UNESCO's Heritage Center to take a listen.
At the UNESCO headquarters in Paris, preparations are well underway for one of the organization's biggest annual gatherings. Ahead of the meeting in Busan this July, UNESCO World Heritage Director Leza Ilongduo Somo spoke about what lies ahead for the committee.
What kind of key agendas are expected to be discussed in Busan this year, and what kind of possible positive outcomes do you expect to come from that?
It will be an important moment to recognize new sites from the rest of the world and also from the Republic of Korea. Important moment to see what kind of solutions or recommendation we can see, including inscribing some sites on the list endangered, to mobilize the international communities to safeguard them.
One issue expected to draw particular attention is Korea's proposal to expand the World Heritage listing of Ketbar, the country's tidal flats. The original inscription in 2021 covered only part of the ecosystem. Leza said the extension would strengthen protection efforts while reflecting Korea's commitment to preserving biodiversity.
Not the whole territory of Ketbar is recognized. The Republic of Korea has prepared this candidature with professionalism, and the site is already known. So I do expect a very good outcome.
Another major topic on the agenda will be support for small island developing states, marking the first time the issue is formally addressed under the convention. He also highlighted Korea's growing role within UNESCO, citing the country's support for conservation projects and heritage capacity building efforts worldwide.
Agreement with the Republic of Korea, which is more than almost $4 million, with a particular focus of supporting Africa and the small island development and transboundary sites. You know, it shows that the implication, the commitment to support the World Heritage with this agreement that we signed today is for the next years.
As climate change increasingly threatens heritage sites globally, he said cooperation with Korea will become more important than ever.
If we don't domesticate some of the policies into national policies everywhere, if we don't train the professionals to really give priority in looking how climate change is affecting each and every site, we might risk seeing many of them disappear.
For UNESCO, the Busan meeting will be more than a gathering to decide new inscriptions. It will also serve as a platform to shape how the world protects its shared heritage for future generations. Park Geun-woo, Arirang News, Paris.
Today, western regions saw typical early summer warmth. Meanwhile, Jeju Island continues to experience wet weather under the influence of rain clouds. Rain will persist on Jeju Island and along the eastern coastal areas of tomorrow, with most places expected to pick up around 5 to 10 millimeters of rainfall. Even with continued rain on Jeju, the rainy season has not officially begun there yet. Typhoon Mekala, the seventh named storm of the season, is not expected to directly affect Korea. However, it could push the stationary front northward, which may influence the timing of the onset of the rainy season. Tomorrow, ozone levels are expected to reach bad levels across Gyeonggi-do province and Incheon, so try to avoid outdoor activities if possible. And UV levels will be very high in parts of the central region, so please try to wear a sunscreen if you're heading outside. Most areas will start the day with temperatures below 20 degrees Celsius. Seoul 19 degrees, Chuncheon 15 degrees, Daegu 18 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 29 degrees, Daejeon 26 degrees, Busan 23 degrees. On Thursday, scattered showers are expected across inland areas. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session, so do stay with us.